The second best quarterback battle after Minnesota, I think, is in Atlanta, and it's between Michael Penix and Tua. But interestingly, Atlanta's OC Alex Van Pelt says the competition won't begin until Penix is cleared and healthy. So Tua has like a big jump start, because remember, this is a new offense. I know Penix is technically the incumbent because he started last year, but he got injured. But with the entire new offense and a new coaching staff, remember, the coaching staff in the front office looked around the league and said, who could we get? Let's get Tua. I don't think that's a great sign for Penix, Colin. I don't know. It's June, but you have a lean in this battle.
Yeah, Penix. You'd prefer the young guy beats him out. I mean, you drafted him. You gave up the draft capital to get him. You'd want him to start. He's a bigger, stronger, better arm player.
Wouldn't the same apply to J.J. McCarthy?
He can't play. Like, it's been a disaster. Penix just been hurt. There's a difference between right now, the jury's still out on Penix.
Okay.
You don't go acquire Kyler Murray, who is a better player athletically, still has 5 or 6. I mean, Tua right now is a backup. Nobody's building around him. Kevin O'Connell's a good coach. He's like, you know, I can build around Kyler Murray. So I think J.J. McCarthy's career in Minnesota is short.
Damn. Hot takes.
All right. And that concludes the segment. We're supposed to discuss the Falcons. I've got your back, Falcons supporters. I've got your back. We are going to talk about the Falcons because this remains a discussion that I'm genuinely eager to have, and I believe I'm going to introduce a fresh perspective to it that I'm looking forward to exploring. But before I dive in, Atlanta Falcons fans, please don't forget to subscribe and watch the complete version of the video. When you do that, viewership numbers go through the roof. Subscriber counts go through the roof. And it's not about chasing views. It's not about chasing subscribers. It's about being able to produce Atlanta Falcons content that people genuinely want to watch and discuss so we can continue having the most impartial, level-headed, and truthful conversations about the Falcons. Watching the full-length video makes such an enormous difference. And I would just really appreciate it. I mean, my eyes lit up. Seriously, I'm not kidding. My eyes lit up when I saw the Falcons. I spotted the logo and thought, oh, is that what helmet is that? Then I realized, oh, it's like 2 pennants. And I thought, yes, Colin talking about the Falcons. And he talked about them for maybe 25 seconds and then shifted to discussing J.J. McCarthy, Kyler Murray, and Kevin O'Connell. It's like, okay. But I want to give this topic room to breathe. It's always so difficult to find good Falcons clips because those clips are always too few and far between and way too short. Still, I was recently watching some highlights of Penix, and I had been very high on Penix after what I saw him do in what I believe was 2024, his rookie season. I put out a bunch of videos emphasizing how remarkable and how impressed I was, just objectively speaking. I don't know why I can't speak properly right now. Objectively, it's true to say that what the Falcons needed from him as a rookie, throwing him into action, considering who he had to face, the pressure, the circumstances, was impressive. And when you directly compared him to the quarterbacks who played at the beginning of the season, Bo, Caleb, Jaden, Penix arguably had the best start. Yet he actually faced pressure and there were real consequences. If you win, we're in the playoffs. The stakes were genuinely there in a way that they simply weren't at the start of a season for Bo, Jaden, and others. So I was extremely high on Penix going into 2025, and there were a handful of games where I felt very validated, even early in the season against teams like the Buccaneers and so on. And it felt like this is great. Then things obviously took a turn. Things got strange, the coaching, all of that. And I've criticized the coaching a million times. I'm not going to spend all this time attacking the coaching. But I think something that people really underestimate and overlook is the fragility you have when you're a young player, when you're a young quarterback. The level of resilience, not only from a talent standpoint in terms of what you can do on the field, but also emotionally, mentally, there are just different layers to it. That's why I'm watching the NBA Finals right now and watching Harper, who's a rookie, and observing his composure, his execution, his play. This is a rookie in the finals, and it just gives me chills. It's so remarkable. It is so impressive. And I think we take those moments for granted. We don't magnify them and celebrate them enough. And just because you're unable to do that at a particular moment doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It simply shows how special it is when someone does. And when you're a quarterback, there are just so many moving pieces. Think about when you first got a job, whether it was a serious adult job or some random job. Any job I've ever had, at the beginning, there's a fragility. There's a lack of understanding. If things get busy, I remember I used to work at a parking garage, and when things got busy and chaotic, it was overwhelming to keep track of what was happening. It was hard to keep up with this and that. Then over time, I could do it in my sleep. You live for it. When it got really busy and really crazy, it felt like you were playing a sport. It felt like you were in the flow, just moving and doing everything, chest out, balling out, but you're at a parking garage, right? So that's pretty cool. Even something as simple as that, as minor as that. And now you're talking about something as complicated as one of the hardest things to do in all of sports, playing quarterback. When you don't have high-quality coaching, when you don't have consistency, it becomes so much easier for things to fall apart and, frankly, to get bad and get bad quickly. And that then brings me to Tua as well, because we saw firsthand, people tried to make fun of this take. I had this opinion before where I said you brought in Kirk Cousins, and you could see the improvement. I think it wasn't Falcons fans, I think it was Raiders fans, and they said I clearly wasn't watching Falcons games. I understand that, but I did actually watch those games, and you could see the impact that Kirk Cousins had on that offense. You could see a veteran presence, because a veteran is going to be more resilient. And that actually takes me to something, since they brought up J.J. McCarthy, Justin Jefferson said it, and it's perfect. It fits perfectly here. He understands the game. Jefferson said this about Kyler Murray. He understands the defenses. He understands how to put touch on the ball just enough so that it gets where it needs to go without making it difficult for us. So he understands the game a lot more simply because he's been in the league for a few years now. So he kind of throws the ball before you even come out of your break. Throws you open for sure. He's a smart guy. He's a competitor just like me. And really, in essence, he's explaining what a veteran presence can bring, a deeper, more experienced understanding. And so Tua is going to have that advantage over Penix. And there's going to be the opposite of that aspect. Again, this isn't to say that Penix doesn't know defenses or doesn't know how to throw receivers open. I'm not saying any of that at all. But a veteran, an experienced player, is an experienced player. That's why you could argue that many backup quarterbacks could have more success than a true rookie simply by nature of experience. And I won't play this clip or this quote either, but you have KD jumping for joy because Mike Evans is there. He says this is the first time since 2019 that they've actually had a legitimate veteran wide receiver, and he basically says it's amazing. It feels so good to have a vet. It's just good to have someone who understands the game. It doesn't mean they have to be amazing. It doesn't mean they have to be perfect. It doesn't mean they have to be an all-pro, set the league on fire. You just know when someone has experience. You just know when they've been there. And it's the same if you're working somewhere that gets really busy. It's different than working with someone who's new. And when you're with someone who you just know knows what they're doing at a bare minimum, you don't have to explain everything to them. And that feels good. That feels like you can breathe. It feels like you have a teammate beside you. And that is what Penix is up against, just like J.J. McCarthy in his moment. And I really want to essentially throw out last season completely, because to me it was such a mess. Again, there's a fragility with a young quarterback that I'm simply not going to hold his feet to the fire over. I'm just not going to do that at all. So there's that. But there is also the feeling that you've seen the best of Tua. Could you see a better version of Tua than when he had Mike McDaniel with Tyreek and Waddle? They had one of the best offenses in the NFL. Would they score 70 or something against the Broncos, whatever that score was, 70-20 or whatever? So we saw the best version of that. And now, unfortunately, he's banged up. With the concussions, his style of play has had to change. And speaking of fragility, unfortunately, there's a fragility there with Tua. But Tua is also a nice player, he really is. I think if there were more resilience with Tua, you would feel a bit stronger about him. And I've also put out the take that because he's a lefty, lefties just feel weird to watch. It just looks strange. And Penix is obviously the same, it just looks weird to watch. So everything always feels, it's just a mental trick. Everything just feels harder. It just looks weird. So if there's a bad play, nothing looks worse than a lefty quarterback scrambling, making a throw, and then having it intercepted. It just looks like you've never played football before. Again, it's a total mental thing. I'm a lefty myself, but it's just a mental thing because your brain has been trained to see something look one way over and over again. That's why you don't need to know anything about football. But if you've watched a lot of football and then you randomly see a lefty quarterback, you'll think something looks weird, and you won't know why. You'll ask yourself why this looks weird, and then you realize it's because he's a lefty. So they're always going up against that. Always, always, always. That's just my personal observation. So if you didn't have those things, I think you'd feel better about both these quarterbacks, honestly. But again, obviously I'm talking about fragility and Tua. People feel the same way about Penix as well. So it's a unique situation, incredibly unique. And I've said this in the past as well, it's okay to admit that it's also a little bit messy, a little bit uncomfortable. But I do like either direction they go in. However, you're going to feel the most optimistic about what truly can be with Penix. And Penix, I do believe, can bring a level of excitement to this team in a way that Tua wouldn't, because there's the feeling that Penix has untapped potential, whereas probably a lot of people feel like they've seen the best of Tua. In a best-case scenario, you're just trying to revisit that and then cross your fingers that everyone stays healthy, right? So I am curious to see where this all lands, and it is an interesting comment to make. Falcons quarterback battle won't begin until Penix's ACL is cleared. T's an interesting phrasing. It's an interesting way to put it. It's probably the right thing to say publicly, but it's obviously not how you're handling it as a coach. As a coach, you're observing everything right now. You're observing everything. You're taking notes. The battle started from the moment both quarterbacks were on the roster. That's just the reality of the situation. And a coach is factoring in every conversation he's had, every text he's sent, every joke that's made, every sprint that's run, every question that's asked. The battle started from the jump. There is no, oh, well, we're not going to really look at any of this until everyone's ready. That's not how it works. That's not how it works at all, because again, these are human beings, and everyone is under pressure. Everyone is under tremendous pressure, and everyone is also just trying to keep their job and get paid. Heck, everyone. So believe me, this whole back and forth thing is also haunting the coaching staff. And it's frustrating the players because you don't have clarity. I talk about that all the time. You need clarity. You need clarity. You need clarity. And so every second you don't have that, it's a thing. So I promise you right now, the battle has already begun. It is one where whether Penix is out there playing and doing everything he can, or whether he's sitting on a table doing nothing and getting stim and massage and whatnot, this battle has started. And Tua has the advantage, one because he's technically healthy, and two because he's the actual veteran, so a lot less translation needs to take place. So I think it's a really exciting quarterback battle, and I think it's really, really interesting. And I'm genuinely rooting for both these quarterbacks. I genuinely want to see both these quarterbacks succeed. I'm definitely in a bit of a kumbaya, let's have world peace era. So I'm all for it. But yeah, I'm interested to see when we can start to get actual more information and actually get more sound bites and leaks as to what things are looking like, because right now it feels like there's no sense whatsoever. But I do agree with Colin, if you're the Falcons, you want it to be Penix in a lot of ways. You need it to be Penix, because otherwise you're admitting you made a mistake. Although it is a new regime, so they don't feel beholden to Penix, they could easily cut bait and say, we had nothing to do with this. He wasn't our guy. We wouldn't have picked him. Right? So it's thin ice for both of them. It's a fragile situation. It's a fragile situation, and it's a messier situation than you would want. But I will say this, and I'll end here. I think at the bare minimum, the Falcons are interesting. And I had my whole take last season because I thought it was so great when Louis Riddick said the Falcons are trying to restore relevance. It was so exciting when they beat the Bills. I loved that phrasing, felt that momentum, was so excited, and talked about it. Then I immediately got burned by it. I was believing in the Falcons, and I got burned. And I criticized the Falcons for how 2024 unfolded as well. But at least this team feels interesting. At least this team feels like there's some momentum. And I do believe they genuinely could have a ton of success, but at the bare minimum, they're interesting. I don't find the Cardinals interesting right now. I just don't find anything interesting whatsoever about the Cardinals. I find the Browns interesting, but for the wrong reasons, honestly, for the wrong reasons. I find the Falcons interesting for football reasons. For football reasons. So at the bare minimum, that excites me and gives me the interest of genuinely wanting to watch this team play, not just for the drama, not just for, oh, what could go wrong or what are we going to see next, but because I'm genuinely intrigued to see what this looks like when all is said and done. So at the bare minimum, there are worse places to be, even if you're not exactly where you want to be. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you all think about the Atlanta Falcons? How do you feel about the quarterback battle not starting until Penix is cleared, apparently? How do you feel about the direction they want to go in toward Penix, etc.? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into some debates. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. Please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build stuff that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.